It's the Face of Chicago Business podcast, introducing you to the stories behind the faces, focused on fixing today's problems with thoughtful leadership and purposeful living. Sit down with us as we get to know the individuals who make our city second to none.
How you guys doing? I'm Tony Arce, and this is the Face of Chicago Business podcast. Today I'm joined by your lender, Mike Wieczorek. Mike, appreciate you being here, brother.
Thank you for having me, Tony. I appreciate it, man.
No, it's our pleasure. Now, Wieczorek, originally from Berkeley, Illinois, near Elmhurst, right?
That's correct.
But Wieczorek, I think, Polish, not necessarily Italian, but you're Italian, right?
I am, yeah. My mom's 100% Italian.
Okay.
And then my father's actually 100% Irish.
Oh, wow.
But his father was adopted by a Polish family.
Wow.
So it was he was dropped off on a church doorstep in New York and ended up with a Polish family. And so grew up in the Polish culture, and my father and his siblings didn't even find out really the story until my father was in his 50s. So it was just kind of you don't ask. Yeah. That's just what it was.
And now for you, how old were you when you found that out?
I'm like 20 years old at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What did that do for your identity, I guess? Like, to believe one thing and then all of a sudden it's like, not that it's a huge deal, right? But culture identity.
I got to be real honest. I don't think I ever thought I was Polish. I mean, it was like my dad was red hair and pale and freckles. My sisters have red hair. It was pretty obvious that we were Irish, you know. And then he ended up doing the Ancestry.com thing a while back, and he's total purebred. Total purebred. They're like, that's like, 97 point something or whatever.
Wow.
So definitely a 50-50.
Gotcha.
Irish and Italian, but definitely no Polish aside from, growing up in that culture. But
and then you got a nickname too growing up, right?
Yeah, even my father's nickname growing up was Wiz.
Okay.
Just W-I-Z, Wiz for Wieczorek.
Oh.
Or in Polish they say Wieczorek.
Wieczorek. I like that.
I get corrected often. Yeah.
But you look different than your sisters too, right? It was.
Yeah, I mean, my mother said she was always very, very happy when she saw that she had a baby boy and that the child had dark hair. She was like, I was just waiting to see dark hair, running around the house, and I've got two redheads, and they're beautiful. But she's like, now the Italian prince essentially was crowned. There was the dark-haired child running around. So
for sure.
Yeah, very cool. I dodged that bullet. I like to say, dodged that bullet.
So, I mean, now you're in real estate.
Yeah.
You're doing the lending stuff, right?
Yeah.
But was that something that growing up you had an influence in? Did you see that, your parents? Was it something that you gravitated towards? Where did that interest come from you? Come for you in real estate?
So even like on my podcast, we talk about all the time, how the heck do you get into real estate? No one like goes into school and it's like, I'm going to go to real estate. Right. And for me, it was like a product of actually selling weed. And I tell that story because it's like this mortgage industry got me out of selling weed, but it got me right into it. And that was just because I was always good at building relationships, knew how to deal with different types of personalities, and always was able to work my way through things without a lot of conflict. Yeah. And it led me to a relationship where someone said, hey, man, you can sell anything. Why don't you sell mortgages? And I was like, well, what's a mortgage, And he told me, and I was like, yeah, I'll sell that. I will sell that, And so I did, right? And there was a really, really quick progression from there because I was like, whoa, this is cool. Yeah. This is different. And you can do it really quickly without even leaving the office. Like, you don't actually have to go, and it's legal. This is fantastic. And so it's an interesting story, but it's like, everything really does happen for a reason, and it grooms you for the next thing. And I really did right by people, even in something that at that time was absolutely deemed as illegal. Right. I was doing what I thought was appropriate, which was taking care of what people wanted to do to have a little bit of extra fun. And I didn't see it as, something that was going to put them in harm's way, and maybe that's whatever, take it one way or the other. But, it really did put me in a nice position to understand I'm just putting a different product in place. And when you take care of people along the way, they'll come back, and then they'll tell their friends and family. And it's cool to see the quick evolution of going from one thing to allowing people an opportunity to take that next step in their life.
Sure.
It's like, whoa, that was a big leap. Thank you for telling me what that mortgage was. Like,
For sure. So did you think, was it like a personality thing for you that you always hustling, as a kid, or was that something that you just did when you were selling weed?
No, I was always massive action on everything. My mom would say, she's like, idle hands for you is like, man, she's like, we just put you in everything all at the same time. And
like sports, and you mean like activities, everything.
Anything.
Yeah,
she's like, it could be like flying a kite, kicking, like you just needed to be involved.
Yeah.
Or else you were going to go get involved.
Yeah.
So they're trying to structure that time. I mean, it was to the point where my parents dressed me in hyper colors because they'd be at like a picnic or whatever, town picnic, and they'd be like, we turn around and your ass would be gone.
Yeah.
You'd be like sitting down eating with a different family. Like, hey, just
Yeah.
They're like, you weren't going far, but you couldn't be found easily, and so we put you in hyper colors.
For sure.
But it was always massive action for me, and it was early on put into like the Boy Scout stuff, and that was quickly like not fit for Boy Scouts. I was like, unless we're doing like Pinewood Derby every weekend, this ain't gonna work. I don't want the eagle or the weird badges. It just let's do the cool shit, And then it went right to sports, and anything I could do outside with the neighbor kids, it was on, anything. And then went into baseball and up through high school, and something that, this will hold me accountable for too, that I want to do sometime in the near future is, even in high school baseball, what got taken from me was the structure. I got arrested 2 different occasions for possession of alcohol at a party where I wasn't drinking. I didn't have, they even tested me, but because I was within arm's reach, I was deemed to have been, doing something illegal. Well, I get taken 2/3 of my baseball season away from me. You get suspended, right? And so no matter whenever you go back to whatever sport it might be next, you have to serve that time. Well, guess what? All my friends, all those people that are structured and have the same common interest. Now, it's a conscious decision by me. My ego at that time, I'm like, I'm not sitting. I'm certainly not sitting for 2/3 of a season.
Yeah.
Well, by doing that, and everything happens for a reason, and I'm here and blessed for that fact, but it shifted everything. I had to quickly make all new friends like today.
Yeah.
Because today, you're suspended for 2/3 of a season. Like I was able to stomach the first time I got arrested. It was like 1/3 of the season. I put myself, these are all circumstances I put myself in, right? But that second time, now I just left. I left sports. I left structure. And that's where I just found, again, massive action. Where's it go? Where's it go? Where's it go? Where's it go? What do I do?
Right.
What's my new gig?
Right.
Before I'm like, oh man, I'm a hotshot baseball player, and that's my MO, right?
Wow.
Now what am I? Who am I? What am I doing? Oh, let me find something that I like doing. Oh, pot's fun. Oh, I can sell that to everybody, and I don't have to pay for it. Oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
And then you quickly develop a whole new kind of group of people, if you will, which was, again, it was fun. I found a whole nother. I found it that I found that no matter what I was doing, I was going to be good at it if I put everything I had into it, and that was natural to me. So whatever I did, whether it was constructive or not, I was pretty successful in it. So
Sure.
now I try to look at doing bigger things than smaller tasks, if you will.
But even then, I mean, it seems like now, and from our conversations, you're very health conscious, right?
Yeah.
It's a big part of who you are today.
Huge.
But it also seems that you were self-medicating in a way back then with the weed, right? And now it's in its infancy of being legal and hopefully being federally legal. But, even back then, were you as conscious of its medicinal benefits, even though it had that negative connotation? And was it helping you deal with some, because it was hyperactivity for you, right? Attention deficit.
Yeah.
A lot of hyperactivity.
Yeah. I mean, it just nothing had my attention long enough to sit still. And so I always say, like, none of my teachers did not like me. None of them.
Yeah.
I was only offensive in that I was disrupted because I was not able to sit still.
For sure.
But I was never saying anything. I never did anything offensive. I was just like acting like a fool, you know? But it's an interesting question, and I would have to say that I was way too ignorant to understand the health benefits. But no doubt was I experiencing them, because that's a goofy ass time in your life anyway.
Yeah.
And especially, that's a really good point though too, or good question to think about, because when you're transitioning, right? You're transitioning from baseball, and that's my group of people, and this is what my activities look like after school.
Yeah.
To brand new group, and what do my activities look like? Well, I have to fill those gaps, right? And so, in the act of just having that new, activity of smoking or whatever else, it probably did help me in the transition. Because I always said to myself and everybody around me, no matter what I was doing, and there was times that I absolutely stopped, even testing for the police department, which is another interesting story. But I always said if it negatively affected my life, I would immediately stop.
Yeah.
And it never did. It never clouded my judgment. And it always actually increased my opportunity to not be in harm's way. Like even those times that I was in possession of alcohol, but I wasn't drinking. I wasn't drinking because I was smoking a little pot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
But I wasn't,
the irony, right?
I wasn't fucked up. I could have drove, or I could, if I could have got out of the house, I could even outran them.
Right.
My point is, health always seemed the alternative was always there. Now, don't get me wrong, I overindulged as well at different times, but yeah, the health conscious aspect of it was either on the forefront or in the non-conscious, because there was always an alternative activity, I guess, that I had available from the other things that were going around, as I found these new groups of friends.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Interesting question, though.
No, and so going to that conscious versus unconscious, I guess, approach to your health.
Yeah.
You went through something pretty traumatic, right? Or dramatic, or however you want to say it, that it was a lot to deal with in your life, right? Will you share a little bit about what that was and some of the things that you had to endure?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know what the word would be. It wouldn't be traumatic. And I didn't think it was dramatic until now, looking back.
Right.
Shit, that was
you went through
heavy.
a lot. I mean, just a little bit you told me.
Yeah. No, it was a lot. And honestly, I'll say, when you, even with people that, veterans, right? And they go off to war. And I dealt with veterans for a long time. And I kick myself in the ass for it now. And you're a veteran, right? And so it's like, we say to you, thank you for the service, right? And I hope that it's from the right place when people say that. But oftentimes we forget to say it to their spouses.
Right.
Or their family members that were without them.
Yep.
And I'm super conscious of that now. Again, like you go through certain experiences and all of a sudden your perspective is fucking flipped on its head. And you're like, oh, man, I've not been looking at that right? And so when I go through this, maybe it was traumatic and dramatic for my mother and my father.
Sure.
And they're not me walking around in this body knowing what it is and isn't feeling like and stuff like that, right? So this has been a very, very unique time to kind of go back and scan my memories and learn from them really quickly, and then be able to push through each day really with gratitude and empathy and all those things that people are talking about. I'm like, I get that. I'm super clear on that being a focus on how I become happy. And it's by making sure that I do those things to make other people happy. Yeah. But what happened with me, and to give the cliff notes, if you will, 18 years old, I'm diagnosed with anemia. They come and get me. My parents come and get me after a blood test. And I'm working at a warehouse stacking beer pallets for the next morning's delivery. And I'm 135 pounds, skin and bones. It's middle of the summer, and I'm wheezing, thinking, damn, I'm out of shape. Yeah. And my parents come and get me, and they're like, you got to come with us. You can't drive. You could pass out, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? Get to the hospital, and they're like, your hemoglobin's at 3.5. And I'm like, oh, that sounds low. What is it normally? I don't know what that means. Thanks. And they're like, well, it's supposed to be anywhere from 12 to 16. And, we've never seen anybody, breathing past 5.
Holy smokes.
You should be in a coma at 7.
Jesus.
And 9 is where we'd usually infuse you. And all, 9 is where we'd start to really get worried. You're at 3.5. And so what they weren't telling me, especially because I was 18, I wouldn't even have understood it, but all the tests that they were doing, they were looking for leukemia. And so my parents thought it was leukemia, and so again that ignorance. That's
an indicator of it, having
just
that.
The iron deficiency that was shown in the testing, and just I think just the full array of what they were looking at. The only thing they could really come up with at that point. And I mean, I love the medical community, but we all have to remember that doctors are practicing medicine, right? Yeah. This is just a very good analysis or, opinion based on facts in a book.
Right.
And so they were scattered for thoughts on what really could be creating this issue and why is this guy alive? Why is he walking around? And so it went undiagnosed for like 8 years. And they just basically said iron deficiency anemia. And it's like, but why? So from the onset, we were treating symptoms, which I was aware of, and we all kind of knew that our options were limited. We were just kind of pushing for technology to catch up, like to find out more ways to identify what might be. And
at this point, are your only real symptoms that your energy levels? I mean, are you noticing something?
So 3.5 on a hemoglobin is your blood volume. Mm-hmm. And your blood volume is going to dictate how much energy you have based on how much oxygen you're receiving through blood flow, right? Your blood volume. Mm-hmm. And so I'm walking around like, gassed all the time, quarter tank right there. Yeah. And then I would walk around normally between 7 and 9. If I ever got to 10, that was like a celebration. And
it's something you can monitor on your own kind of thing.
After forever, I could tell them what my blood tests were going to come back at. Mm-hmm. The hospitals would let me schedule my own appointments. Wow. I could schedule my own my gastroenterology appointment, or my endoscopies, anything. They would be like, "Oh, you can't, sir. Is this Mike?" Yes. Wow. Hey, Mike. Yeah, we'll get you in here. No problem. And so, funny along the way, I did like many of these people's mortgages, though. Even my surgeons, when we get to that part of the story, I still keep in touch with these people because it was like, I always assumed this is going to be my tribe for my life. Like, this is what my life's going to be like. I'm going to keep these people close to the chest.
Yeah.
Which was how I was anyway. But I'm like,
this is just your personality was always like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Hoping that no good interaction was a one-time gig. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. So in that way, I've revisited a lot of really cool people along the years of treatment. Yeah. So I think about it like that because when what was happening in my body is I had in my small intestine the lower half of it was diseased, and it was just essentially bleeding lesions that would repressurize different parts of the intestine on the lower half of it, and they would bleed, and they would release not only the blood but the proteins and everything that the body was trying to use to for nutritional value. And so I'm getting an influx of iron to supplement the loss of blood so that they don't have to give me blood. And then in which case you eventually develop antibodies, and there's a problem there of being able to receive blood, right? So let's give iron to try to boost the body. Well, they didn't really know what they were doing. So there's no diagnosis, right, as to why it's happening. So they're just pumping me with iron for these years. And then finally they pushed me to another doctor, and all the doctors were great. They just were kind of limited in what they knew. There was no study on it.
And at this point, almost a decade has gone by.
We have 6 years there, and I'd say probably about a couple of years later, almost a decade. Let's say 8 years. Yeah. I go to another doctor, and they get a fresh look. They identify that there's blood coming from the lower half of the intestine, and they start just cauterizing. They start burning. They start burning these things, and I have tattoos. At that point, I don't have that part of my intestine anymore, but it was full of tattoos so that they could identify where they had treated and if they had treated.
Literal tattoos, they're marking it.
Yeah, so they can come back to the point and see if these things had reestablished themselves, right? If they're regenerating.
Yeah, yeah. Man, you were dealing with a lot.
I did probably, and again, when you say me, I know what you're talking about. I just want to kind of go back to the point that, I'm going through a lot, but I was always of the mindset, I'm just showing up and I'm going to get some drugs. I'm going to knock out. I'm going to get up and I'm going to be breathing fire for a minute. You know what I mean? That's just the way I wasn't like I'm going in there and I'm getting all my guts, burned clothes because there's blood pouring out of them. And I was just like, I just got to go do this thing, Yeah. And, but my parents are the ones sitting there for friggin' 10 hours a day, right? We're getting there at friggin' 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. Rolling home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Jeez. They're sleeping in a chair. They're not spring chickens, right? Yeah. And I'm waking up and I'm half, cocked, just about to get home, right? And you think back and you're like, damn, I had 60 of those procedures, maybe more. That's 600 hours. 600 hours alone. Yeah. Just for the stuff that wasn't even when I was in the hospital for weeks on it.
It's just treatment. Yeah.
But just treatment, I understand what you're saying, but like just their son for 10 hours, 60 times, going into a circumstance that it's not likely, but anything could happen, or they could identify a different reason why this is happening, or it could be over, but there's a lot of unknowns. So it's an interesting, thing to reflect back on, because it's just full of lessons. Every friggin' part of my life, now that I have like this different lens, of perspective, as I like to say, it's the greatest gift to have gone through something so incredibly humbling, because I always had a governor, like an inherent governor, literally inherent governor, that has now been removed. But it was like, when I look back at it, it saved my life. I've given speeches on this too. It's like the things that I was involved with, like I said, in Massive Action, it was like, okay, well, let's go hard at drinking. I'm going to be the best drinker. They talk about some idiot with a lampshade on his head. Well, I'm going to be the guy that puts like a friggin' table on his head or some shit, like, well, how can we just make it even goofier? I don't, like that doesn't, let's be the goof, let's do that guy.
But you're saying were you always like this though?
I was always wanting to be the best in what the focus was. So yes, I wanted, even if it was dumb things, it was Massive Action. I want to have the coolest name brand. Like I was such a douchebag for like I remember specifically one Christmas. Like there's just Massive Action in the wrong areas was the same thing. It was just a miscalculation of where that effort should go.
For sure.
Right? But like regardless, I was always like that. I was always like that. And it served me well. Because when in that Massive Action, no matter what I was doing, even if it was like ill-advised or miscalculated, I never did it without integrity. I never did it with like a bad delivery of information. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that has gotten me, I think, even in my health journey, gotten me where I'm at today. Because I would always ask questions further than like what was expected, you know?
Yeah.
And like the doctors would sit there and talk to me, and then I would talk to them. I'm like, wait a minute. Now let me understand this correctly. Is this what you're saying? I would challenge them. And that opened up a lot of opportunities for me to go further into my diagnosis or lack thereof. But anyway, after all that time spent in the hospitals, now we're fast forwarding a whole bunch. And now at this point, I'm 15 years. I'm 15 years into treatment, right? 15 years into treatment. And they're still just cauterizing these holes, right? Giving me intravenous iron up to 5 days a week now at the hospital.
Holy smokes.
And so I've grown up in the hospital, right? So I've grown up in the hospital essentially. 18 years old, I was going once a week on Sundays. And that was in the old hospital at Elmhurst before they knocked it down and built the new one. And it was like in the basement. There was like 4 beds, and it was like their little cancer center. It was like, holy moly, you're going to the basement for the cancer center. And it's like, Jesus, this is morbid enough. But like, and it's what they had, and they were literally transitioning. But it was, I remember that being like this is different. This is a different appointment. But it was humbling immediately because you were going in there, and I'm like, I'm getting iron. You're getting fed poison.
Yeah.
Woe is me? Fuck, I don't have time for that. I'm not going to be looking at myself like, what is the deal? And these people are, to me, every one of them, unfortunately, just looked like they were losing a battle morally, And I'm in there like, well, I will not be the one coming in here and fucking frown facing you guys, because I've got nothing to, to be sad about, if you will. And that continued to be a gift, though. I always had tattoos, and all the new nurses that would come in, and they were transitioning to a new hospital, so they were like really speeding them up as they were opening up the new place. Like they were always like, Mike, you don't care if so-and-so does their first stick on you, do you? And I'm like, no. So like I was like the guy that they all waited for so they can get their first IV in. I was coming enough. But like the point is that a lot of these women, I don't think there was any male nurses, but the doctors, some of them started with me, like some of the doctors at a young age,
Wow.
but some of the nurses, but literally their first sticks in the professional environment. Many of them were me.
They grew up with you, basically.
And I with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we look back and I'm like, how long have you been doing this? And they're like, I don't know, like 15 years. Don't you remember you were my first stick? And I was like, no, 15 years? Like, do we get a cake? Like, what do we do?
Yeah, right.
You don't think about it like that.
No,
but it's
for sure.
Life keeps happening.
Yeah.
Right. And that was kind of one of the other morals of like, my, as I reflect back, my lessons was like, and I identify a lot with, military talk of like, my best friend in wartime and listening to, his boys that made it back. And they were like, you want to stay alive, you keep it fucking moving,
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, that's what I do.
but the only thing is you don't just keep it moving, but you have such a great attitude about it, and you just have an energy about you that I think is very contagious, but it's also that good, those good vibes, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that you always had that, and going into it's what helped in a lot of ways with recovery or whatever else, or do you think that's something that you had to develop a little more of that not only has served you in that capacity, but it seems like it's permeated your whole life?
Yeah. No, they're good questions, and see, like you wrangle me back in too, because I can kind of go all over with this thing because it's an emotional thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've always had it because that was given to me by my parents. I mean, I had a good, really fucking good, solid, like Leave It to Beaver shit, like really solid environment growing up.
Seems like it.
Just a good home that was truly a home, right? A warm house to fail in, to succeed in, to cry in, to celebrate in, all of it was accepted.
Right.
You didn't have to worry about like, I just even remember one day coming home and I was young and apparently I was like just yelling every obscenity at the top of my lungs. And I didn't know, like I came in the front door, my mom's car was in the garage apparently, and she was laying in bed. She had like come home from work and I just yelled everything. And she was like, how you feel after that, Michael? Oh, I feel better. Do you feel good? And I was like, sorry. She's like, all right, I'm going to go back to bed. And like, that was like, it was like, I get it. There was acceptance in your emotions there, right? And then as you get older, I think like, I like buried that shit. I buried like my ability to like be that vulnerable, like, when you're like transitioning to your new friends, right? I'm going into high school. I don't know if whatever it is, acne or it doesn't matter, but I think we all find these ways, not only from society, but like, of course, our self-talk, right? It's like we just throw layers on and we bury all the good shit. Like all that, like come home and just fucking scream it out and like, okay, go back after whatever it is that you had to, had whatever the task at hand was, because it's acceptable to be a little goofy.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden we kind of, we fit the mold every once in a while.
Yeah.
And my experience allowed me to go back to my roots and to shave those layers off rapidly. So it was always there because it was instilled in me. It was a core value that my parents worked really friggin' hard to develop. It wasn't Leave It to Beaver because we were all on a trust fund. They worked their asses off.
Yeah.
So that we didn't. I said this the other day to a mutual friend that we know. I said, "Listen, man, I thought I was rich growing up. And now I know I was, I was fucking rich in family. I was absolutely wealthy.
Yep.
And that was that feeling of comfort. Wealth is, to me, what I think about with wealth and like, going and getting more money is freedom. It's comfort.
Yeah.
Is the knowledge that if something else gets shut down, I'm not actually reliant on it.
For sure.
I can continue with my resources to make that goal happen. And in this conversation, that's the love that's instilled, like that's an endless resource. You can always go back to that well.
Yeah. When you think about real estate and the way you transact in it and the way you interact with, whether it be agents or with your clients, there's more to dealing with you than just at, a surface level, right?
Yeah.
You seem to really be very inspirational towards people. What do you tell individuals whenever they are faced with something that, they don't have the same personality you do, and maybe don't see how they could approach it from that same perspective, but knowing what you know and what kind of advice do you give to people when they face something that maybe something similar to what you've been through?
I'm trying to get better with my delivery of it, just because like I want good for everybody, but like you're saying, some people they want it, but they're not ready to do it. And I just try to get everybody ready right now, and sometimes that really flips somebody on their head, and other times it gets them a little frustrated. But what I know is they leave my conversations thinking about it still.
Yeah,
hopefully thinking about it a different way. You don't need to make the decision in front of me so that you knew I was right. You could do it whenever. I'm not looking for it for me.
Yeah,
just
you're not
hopefully
looking for validation.
No,
right?
just my validation is that I deliver this authentic message that I know they're going to think about it a different way, whether that's tonight, tomorrow, or 2 months from now, so nobody knows it has anything to do with my. I don't care.
For sure.
But if I'm consistent with that over time, and I have been, people are coming back being like, "You were right," and it's like, fantastic. So what kind of awesome shit's been happening? And then we talk about it, and it's like, it had nothing to do with I was right. I was just like, wow, I'm really pumped up that you're doing some cool shit. Like, you totally deserve that.
Yeah.
What did you do? Like, oh, I just did something different. Oh, what'd you do? Well, I just put my pants on the other way and then, pulled my car out a different way. I'm like, okay, good. Because that was something I tell people. I'm like, you want to do something different? Back your car in the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? Well, how do you pull in? Front ways every day. Oh, great. Back it in. Every day.
Yeah.
And if you pull in like you normally do, go, oh, shit, okay. Pull it out and back it in.
Yeah.
It's one thing.
Yeah.
I drink a Coke every morning. Perfect. Don't.
Drink
now
water.
your life's different.
Yeah, right. No,
I write with a pencil every day. Perfect.
Yeah.
Grab a marker.
So is that part of where, you talk about preparing people or is
it's
that
just you have to fight for me, I guess, again, wrangle me back in, but it's like you have to dip your toe in the water and see where people are at. I don't want to give them advice. It's just calling into question, like, listen, start looking at some quotes if you want. I mean, literally they're all there. Like, the roadmap is clear as just a couple of concise sentences, but if you want something different, you have to do something different.
Right.
It's really the same message. You can cut it and slice it and spice it and do all this whatever different things to the message. It's just, you're in control.
Yeah.
So cut the shit.
Yeah.
Like, you skinned your knee. We get it. No one gives a shit. Like, you got to keep going to whatever the task was. We're not talking about your knee here.
Right.
You skinned your knee. That's fantastic. But did you get what the thing that you were going towards?
Yeah. Or
did you find anything on the ground? Why were you down there? I mean, I like to just make people think, right? Like, okay, are you? And this is a big thing that we talk to people, on a daily basis about. Is it a complaint or is it an objection? Because people like to complain, and that's okay. We get it. People got other things going on. So in talking to our team, we call it the Stonehaven family. I mean, it truly is. But it's like when we're talking to anybody, we got to identify first: are they just venting? Like if they're buying a house, they're like, "Oh my God, I wasn't expecting the payment to be that low." I wasn't expecting to be, how am I going to budget for it to be that low? Or I wasn't expecting it to be that high.
Yeah.
Just on their original paperwork, not like that we had given them different paperwork, right? Just in the initial investigation, right? Of what this house is going to look like. And if they say, oh, I didn't expect it to be that high, you're like, oh, okay. And so anything else, that's not like an objection. She's not saying she doesn't want to do it or he doesn't want to do it, but acknowledging that people sometimes are just saying things.
For sure.
Because they need to, and it's a conversation. So great. And if they need a little bit more information on that, we'll go into it. But we identify that we're not going to create any more unjust angst in somebody's dream of creating home ownership, because it really is easy. I see it in the, I see it obviously transactionally often, a month. But when you dive into these family stories and you talk to these, we're closing 180 deals a month on average right now. And
smokes.
I'd say 60 to 70 of those are new homes for people, right?
Wow.
So we're in those stories, we're in those people's lives, right? And we make a good conscious effort to get those stories, get that life story documented, right? And so when you talk to them and you just, I don't know, you dive deep into what it is they set off to do first, and if you identified a faster pathway or a means to uncovering their ability to skip steps. Some people think I have to get the starter home because I can only afford this much, and then I'm going to renovate and I'm going to get my money from credit cards. And we look at really a picture and say, listen, this is where you're at today. Just like a CPA or a financial planner. I'm like, you can get in and out of this money like a car. Use the leverage the bank is giving you to make your dreams available today. Don't wait. This is not our parents. This is a different world.
Yep.
And so I challenge people's idea of what's possible, and just giving them alternative scenarios to think about.
Yep.
And that's in everything. And it's always been inherent in me. I was always devil's advocate, but maybe, again, guided in the wrong way, more argumentative. Just cause.
Yeah, going against the grain.
But yeah, right. That's a great way to say it. So when you jump in the flow, hell, you can do friggin' tailspins and, backflips and stuff. And like, it's just high fives, But point is you're guiding people's thought processes a different way. And when people say that they want to leave people better than they found them, that's my MO.
I feel that. I think you definitely live up to that.
Well, thank you.
No, because it goes, the inspiration, motivation part, I think is just something that, especially after the pandemic and having, having to deal with a lot of these emotions maybe that people didn't, before.
Yeah.
It seems that at that table where you're transacting, that there's a greater opportunity than just what's at hand when it comes to real estate, that just in your speech, just in your personality, it tends to come out a lot, in that. And I feel like, if I were on the other end, if I'm a client and I'm talking to you about certain things and you're giving me that motivational speech in terms of just the real estate, I'm probably thinking this guy's someone that, I'd want to model my life after, even some of those habits that he instilled in his, because it's paid off for you, right? And you invest a lot in your self-development, your personal development.
Huge.
That's a big part of it. Tell us a little bit about, some of those routines that you incorporate into your life. I know you take even cold showers and stuff like that, right? You go to I don't want to say the extreme, but you definitely will go to the uncomfortable levels that maybe a lot of us won't, right?
Yeah, and again, at a time I wasn't doing it either. So it's just as easy and as hard as changing everything that you do. In my health, I had to switch things quickly as we found out different information on my health.
Yeah.
Like, this might help you if you don't eat that, or this might help you if you do eat that. So I was not eating really delicious things, and I was eating not so delicious things, and I just knew that I was always able to kind of switch on a dime and focus and go again, massive action. If I know what I have to do, I can do it really well. The first thing that I did was Sohail Salahuddin. I don't know if you know Sohail, another great guy, great story to have on too. But me and him started in the mortgage industry back where my story began before. And he found his way to the real estate side, and I stayed on the finance side. But I was like, this crazy asshole's getting up at 3:30 in the morning. What the hell is he doing? Now, he's in really good shape, and that's always been a big part of, like, forever and ever since I've known him. That's been a big part of his life.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, okay, I'll try that someday, And then, we've talked about this before, but Grant Cardone, big inspiration in my life. I was transitioning my business, and he just popped up on an inspirational video where he was just kicking ass, taking names, and I was like, man, that dude is on fire, and I identify with this. He was very straightforward and informative, and to the clients, like, you do need these things. That's why we're talking.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to help you here. You need to see past your problems type of situation. And I was like, whoa, you can talk to people like that. You can do that. I was told you can't talk like that. And he's doing really, like, they're saying yes, and they're saying yes a lot. I'm like, what? I was doing it right.
Yeah.
So that's like the short cliff note of my infatuation with being edified through the learning of the 10X rule, which is, Grant Cardone's, for me, kind of flagship book on, and that's his 10X Nation. It's just the effort, essentially, for anybody who hasn't heard the book, it's just conscious, relentless, intentional action on whatever that goal is that you've set out to accomplish, be it, the girl, the perfect marriage, the perfect religion, the perfect involvement in community, the perfect involvement in whatever it is, but having that 10X effort in every category all at the same time by way of doing different things. And so it quickly, he mentioned in it about getting up early as well and starting your day. And I'm like, all right, maybe Sohail's not such a crazy asshole, but I'm just going to get up earlier than him.
Yep.
So I'll try 3 o'clock. And I'm like, I'm up at 3 o'clock. I'm like, man, I'm kicking ass. This is awesome. Things start changing because I'm like, what am I doing at 3 o'clock? well, I need to get my ass out of bed and immediately get into that gym, or else I'm going back to bed.
Yep.
So I'm like, wow, okay, I'm at the gym. And I'm like, okay, now I got these things they call endorphins that are rolling. And I'm like, I've got some good ideas happening. And so like this evolution was over time, but man, getting up earlier and being intentional and getting to do what I wanted to do before the world got to me started to be so powerful. And I'm like, man, I'm running out of time though. I got these little babies are waking up earlier, Mm-hmm. I'm going to go back to 2:30 now. And I'm like, oh man, this is great. Oh shit, I'm running out of time. I'm going to go back to 2:00. So it started at 3:00 and it went to 2:00 within a month.
Jeez.
And
you
I
were
stayed
waking
there.
up
Yeah.
at 2:00 in the morning.
Oh, I was at the gym by like 2:07.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, like, and this is what's crazy. Like, Sohail says this too, and I keep giving him props because I told him, I said, man, this was just a pivotal moment for me. I was inspired by you, and your routines. And he'd been doing it for years and still does, but it just switched everything. That 2:00 spot. He says it all the time that he's like, you're just not thinking about it. He's like, I sleep the same amount of time as you. I'm just in bed earlier, man. I'm just in bed earlier. And I was like, oh, no shit. How about that?
True.
And then I'm thinking, well, okay, so let's allocate my time appropriately, right? So, like, how much shit am I really getting done between 10 and 12?
Yep.
Nah, not a damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go to bed between 8 and 10, like, my kids go to bed at 8. What am I doing after 8?
Yep.
That's constructive.
Yep.
So it was coupling, the people around me, my inherent want to be successful. And at that point, it was still money, but it was happiness, but it was still money in my head. This is even pre-surgery and stuff. But I knew the massive action needed to be there. I knew that the momentum needed to be created by effort. And I knew that, something needed to change. And when it changed, everything changed. Everything changed in my life. Yep. Everything changed when I started going to bed early. Everything changed when I figured out, holy cow, my time is allocated much more appropriately in the morning when nobody can fuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than the evening when I'm at like half staff, like just like kind of, plowing through whatever I can put together.
That's so true.
And it's like, let's put together a business plan. I don't really feel where's their Doritos?
Yep.
I don't have a full thought.
Yep.
So it's like, take your ass to bed, Mike.
I look at that in my own life, and I think very much same thing. And I gotta ask too, because one of the things I've noticed is you really like to take care of people.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that. One of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit was the Seeds program that you had, which I thought was just incredible idea. But they're just the thought of it, right? Are those things that you saw improve also, not just, the everyday stuff, the things that you can quantify, but those ideas when it came to relationships and how to take care of people, did that change as well?
So after surgery, you have a lot of time to reflect. You're laying in bed and I fed myself through a bag for 3 months after that. God. And then, had to build my body back up. But it's the first time in my life, again, that next gift, right? Like, I got off on a tangent again, but that next gift was I identified that through sickness, it's the only thing that ever slowed me down, right? That governor.
Yeah.
And I forgot your question again.
That's fine.
I forgot your question.
Did you find that all those things that improved in your life, one of them was your ability to take care of people, since, those ideas, everything you talked about, that would come to you. I'm sure you always had a thing for taking care of people. You were taking care of, it seems like growing up. But then, just in relationships and business, and the way you approach business, to me, is different than a lot of other professionals, right?
Yeah.
Tell me, but just the way you take care of people.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's something that I'm like, people are like, wow, you're such a nice person. Like recently, they've been saying this. I'm like, I'm getting to meet me too every day.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like, I have been a nice person before, but people haven't gone out of their way to tell me. So I must be doing something different now. And It really does come from being grateful for the ability to have all these opportunities that are coming my way because of the efforts that have been put forth by so many that supported me. And it's definitely helped shed those layers I talked about we put on before. It helped me shed them and like kind of go back to those core principles of what makes me happy.
Yep.
And it's taking care of people. And how do you do that? Well, the macho tough guy me friggin' 10 years ago isn't sending out friggin' seeds and starting a gardening page. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
It's like, that's what really was like the net. And that's the other part of like the Grant Cardone thing and why I have the word now tattooed on my wrist. It's like, I really truly feel like even in that law of attraction, when you feel like you should be doing something, well, as quick as you can get to the business of doing it, the faster that happy thing starts happening. And happy is a good place to be. And if I'm like, I mean, I'm honestly, if I'm outside, I'm happy. Even in how cold it is now, I'm like, just put on different clothes. Let's go outside. Let's just go outside. You know? But like, pandemic hits, and again, with complete empathy for those that have people that have, you know, that lost people or anything like that. It didn't come close to my home, thankfully. And it was another gift in two ways. One was it let me get off of my high horse thinking I had to be on camera and all like these, you know, let's have a perfect suit on. Yep. Let's have like all these things in place. It's got to look great, whatever. And I kind of was like that, but instantly when the pandemic hit, it was like, crap, I'm going to be in a t-shirt. I'm not putting on a suit. And I've got full sleeves of tattoos. So I went home and I freaking put on a t-shirt and I went back and I was like, same message, different sleeves, folks. Like I just knew I had to kind of make that switch. Right. And going through this and that like self-vetting of how do I take care of people? Well, at its core, I can tell you it's just being authentic with me. Taking care of me. Oh, here's a breakthrough. Taking care of me truly is the only way to take care, like to identify the proper roadmap on how to take care of other people. First and foremost, you have to have, you know, that self-reflection, that ability to have that perspective. Like, whoa, I do have to have my cup full. You know, my cup is so full it runneth over, right?
Yep,
like, you can't give to anybody unless you're full. And that really is a thing.
Yep.
But it's fucking easy when you're starting to really take care of yourself. It's easy in the sense that it's easy, like you want to feel good. And then you see like, wait, I'm taking care of this person by just looking after what I know is their needs. And then I'm finding what I need is like I have now that abundance. It's not monetary, right? It's just like, support.
Yep.
Support this person. And all of a sudden here comes the reserves. It's like, oh, here's whatever resource you want. And it's like, wow. Things really do show up no matter what actions you're taking. And so it's a lot easier when you're true to self and you're just authentic. And so with all of what we're doing here, this is absolutely necessary, right? And I have a huge focus on it now too. And the difference of anybody doing it is not the equipment. And I know I was busting your chops a little bit, right? And I don't even know what I'm talking. Like everything here is beautiful. But if we're not talking about something we give a shit about, like, I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
Everything you've put together
it's for nothing.
has no value.
None.
Because what is it?
Right.
It's bullshit.
Yep.
But if you have an infrastructure of what you're putting together, of people that have really had something that is a game changer in life, and if it's a true game changer, it's just across the board, right?
Yep.
And what I'm identifying every day, and we'll fast forward because we'll be here all day. I could talk about this stuff forever. Is like it's opened up. We talked about this a little bit before, but like just different questions, right? Different doors are opening, different levels of opportunity that I always knew I wanted to make available. And maybe before it wasn't for the right reasons. And now I want to make these different level opportunities available to really benefit like just a wider group of people. And it's like, well, okay, here's your pass. And like these doors are opening up now. And so you and I had chatted that 10X rule by Grant Cardone was like a roadmap for me being able to implement change and implementing just things rapidly, right?
Yep.
Just doing things quickly. Let's wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Okay, great. Can't eat gluten. Okay, great. Can't do this. Okay, great.
Yep.
That didn't work. Shift, turn. The 10X rule just said continue to make that massive action, just your constant daily activity, and that, success is your duty, responsibility. Excuse me. Success is your duty, obligation, and responsibility. And I always really identified, which I know you do too, with duty, right? And it's like it's my duty to myself and to my family and to those that maybe didn't properly plan or didn't have the same resources as I did, to be able to have so much that I can give to those people, maybe not just directly in hand, but I can give to them the knowledge on how to create more of that resource for them.
Absolutely.
And so it took me from buying a book to going to his mentorship program when I started this. And I told you a little bit about this with a machine that had to move like the lymph, the fluid from my legs out of my body, right? And getting stopped at security because they thought I had a bomb. And on the X-ray, I'm like, oh my Jesus Christ, it looks like a bomb. It totally looked like a bomb.
Wow.
But anyway, point is it comes full circle that literally today, my phone's going off now, and I'm hopeful. I'm sure it is. But we were talking today from Grant Cardone's office, and I'm talking to his cameraman directly, and I'm talking to his whomever takes care of his scheduling. And Grant's got a pretty crazy schedule. That we're going to be able to do an interview with him.
That's amazing.
A personal interview. Yeah, thank you. I'm out of my mind about it. It's not everybody in the world knows who this is, but even in this arena, right? This guy just knows what it takes to occupy enough space to get the attention necessary so that people like us that really have some good intentions get enough visibility that it happens.
Yep.
And now I've been, again, blessed with the ability to be the host on CNBC for a show called Financing the American Dream. And that's why this opportunity becomes available, not just because of Mike, right? But Mike did get that other opportunity by way of different actions. And it brought me from the guy carrying, the medical device that looked like a bomb through the airport to going down to Grant's office and having a personal interview. And he's got a growth con that he holds every year, and they are holding it this year in Miami, and there's just an opportunity for a different experience to become available by way of this interview and just that interaction with those higher level individuals that really can help me achieve what you and I are set off to do, right?
Yep.
Is to help a good amount of people on an ongoing basis.
Absolutely.
This isn't, before, and this is where I challenge people's minds. It's like even my sister, not always appropriate, but I'll give this example. She was a teacher, and she really gives a shit. I always love saying that. Like, that's the difference from us and other lenders or the people that I identify with is we actually give a shit. She really cares about helping kids. And I'm like, you can only help 22 kids a year.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. But you're worth more than that. But how do you help 22,000 a year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, fast forward, she's found a way to help a whole lot more people.
Oh, no way.
By way of things shifting, different teachers have. Some of them love their job more than ever, and some of them feel more restricted than ever. And she really wanted to help, and she just didn't feel like she could. And so now she is by making a shift. But it's just different thought processes, different ways of thinking is it's going to spill out to your family and friends. No matter what it is, if you are just down on your luck all the time, I skinned my knee, I stubbed my toe, everybody around you is going to have skinned knees and stubbed toes,
so true,
right?
So true.
And all it takes is in a really dark room, one little light to be so friggin' bright that all of a sudden you're the shining star. What did you have to do? How's your day? Fucking awesome. What? What? They're like, good? What happened? Like, I don't know, it's great. What do you mean great?
Yeah.
Why? It's like, I don't know, nothing wrong happened. You're kidding.
Just looking for it.
Yeah. It's like, and then what happened? And I'm like, I ate dinner. It was awesome. Nothing bad.
Nothing bad.
But it's a really good way, especially right now.
Yeah, or at least not seeing it as bad, right? I mean, everything's happened.
But there's always two different ways.
No,
it's the
100%.
glass,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
the glass is 3/4 not full. Whatever.
Yep.
I mean, really.
No,
it could be worse. And that was, again, just to kind of circle back one last time of the humbling thing that I go back to all the time is 18 years of treatment. Going through all of those years, all I thought about was like, well, thankfully I have my ignorance of youth and like not really understanding what was happening to my body and time running out truly. Mm-hmm. And that other biggest gift was just going to these cancer centers. It never changed. It actually only got incrementally worse or better, depending on how you say it. But I would go and see people now my age that are catching up with me, and they're on breathing machines.
Yeah.
And at one point, I had 2 broken legs that I was walking around, and I didn't know about it because they had given me so much iron, they screwed up my bones.
Right.
And that's a different story. But I remember being in a bunch of pain, but I was like, I have that 5 day a week, 1 hour at least a day, sometimes more for blood, that I was looking at people dying around me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, happy me.
Yep.
What, because it was
much different concept.
If there was ever an opportunity, and I never truly did, if there was ever an opportunity for the woe is me, it got slapped out of me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And the pain of those legs, all that stuff kept me focused on feeling like I needed to be going to the next thing. I needed to still progress in my life, but I was searching for answers. I was hitting those doctors at any time I could, just gimping along.
Mike, you're an incredible human being.
Oh.
Truly, truly are. Not just in what you do in real estate. I mean, that's impressive. I know we didn't, go too deep into that, but just as a person, I'm glad to know you.
Appreciate it.
And continue this friendship. But, for those that are listening or watching, who should be reaching out other than obviously every realtor and those looking to either refinance or buy a house? But, who are the type of people you want to connect with?
Yeah, anybody who's looking for a little kick in the ass, you know, but that are receptive to making change now, because me and you have talked about it. I really like to protect my time and stack my deck, right?
Yep.
To those people that are looking for something better.
Yep.
So if it's somebody that's, it doesn't matter at whatever level, but they're motivated for something different.
Yep.
And want some real talk. I'm real good at real talk, direct talk. If there's somebody that wants to even figure out if, lending or sales is something that they want to get involved with, there's a great opportunity for anybody who can make it in sales. You just got to learn how to deal with people. And there's a different way of learning it. It's like, just give a shit first. You can sell anything as long as you're listening to what people need.
Yep.
And then put yourself in a place to satisfy what it is their needs are. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That sounds like you. Please do not hesitate to reach out to Mike, your lender. Mike, thank you so much for being here, sharing your story.
I appreciate your time, man.
I appreciate you, brother.
We'll have to do it again.
Oh, many times.